Director Kelly, can you hear us?
I can, thank you.
Yay.
There's a huge accident. The big road.
Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting. We're just gonna lower our volume, our laptop, and then we're gonna call this meeting to order. I want to say welcome. Thank you all for joining us in person or on Zoom. We'll start first with Dr. Sweeting with our land acknowledgement.
And before I start the land acknowledgement, I want to acknowledge that today is Indigenous Peoples' Day for this year, and it's the second Monday in October. It's set aside across our nation to honor Native American cultures and traditions. We value and extremely are grateful for the partnership that we have with our local tribes. And we work directly with the Stillaguamish tribe, both the education and the cultural departments, to increase our understanding and knowledge of tribal cultural traditions and ways. And now we'll acknowledge the land that we are on right now. We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believed that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Thank you for sharing that. Next, we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please join me? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our roll call attendance. Madam Clerk.
Director Ray. Director Kelly,
Here,
Director Kingman. President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Levon. Here. Student Advisor Nichols.
Here.
Superintendent Sweden.
Here,
Thank you. Next up, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to make, or do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. The agenda is now adopted. And that brings us to our presentation portion of our evening. We'd like to welcome to the front of the room our student presentation and internship report from summer 2023. I'd like to welcome Lisa Rodino Smith and distinguished guests. We've got Mia Gerton, thank you. Our APS communications intern. We'd like to welcome Gary Sable. And when I say your name, please come on up. And Gary Sable, our communications director, and is it Bailey Linklater, our City of Arlington Community and Economic Development intern. And am I close? Okay, no. Juliana Pinion and Mia Martin, our Providence Swedish medical intern. So come on up. We're excited to hear from you.
evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Rodino. I'm the School to Work Coordinator with Arlington Public Schools, and I have the distinct pleasure of being here with 4 of our interns today. Before we hear from them, I absolutely need to I'd like to thank our 13 local businesses. Without these partnerships and relationships with our local businesses, we wouldn't have an internship program at Arlington Public Schools. And I'd like to thank each and every one of these for taking on our fabulous interns this summer. A little bit of statistics. We had 18 students begin the summer and 17 finished. The 17 did earn a half a credit towards graduation. 3 positions were not filled. We had 2 in manufacturing and 1 in GIS that was not filled. I don't feel really bad for the 1 manufacturing because I sent him 3 high school students to hire last year, and then he still has them hired on. So he didn't take an intern, but he hired a couple of our interns, hired a couple of our high school students. This year, our medical interns, we piggybacked on the Providence Swedish summer program. They had a little bit more of more hours. They had to complete 100 hours for their program instead of 90. And they also had the opportunity to spend a week at Camp Prov, which you will hear about it. The purpose of the summer internship program is really an extension of classroom learning. Each one of these students has to be eligible in order for the internship to be placed. Because it is an extension, it is classroom setting to work setting, and that's what it's all about. So to begin, we're going to have Leah talk about her internship.
Hello, my name is Mia Gurton. I'm a senior at Arlington High School, and I was a communications intern for Gary Sable. And today I have a video for you guys to share.
This was Mia's final project. Do I need to turn up my sound on this?
I'm guessing yes.
I'm a senior at Arlington High School. This summer, I have been opportunity.
I think we're gonna get feedback because of the owl.
Office with Gary Sable.
Do you wanna turn down your volume for a second?
Hi, I'm Mia Gurton. I am a senior at Arlington High School. This summer, I had the opportunity to intern in the communications department at the Arlington School District office with Gary Sable. My final project is to create a video that captures what other interns are doing this summer and share their experiences. Let's hear from a few of them now. Students talked about what they liked best about their internship this summer.
I met someone that worked for the Met Gala in New York. I met someone who did all the fashion curation for Prince, the singer, and it was just an incredible experience meeting all of these icons and not even really knowing it in the moment because I figured it out later.
I really like being involved with everything and being hands-on.
It's been a lot of fun to work with the city of Arlington while they host events and stuff. Like I've helped out with the farmers market.
They also talked about why someone should apply for an internship.
If you feel like bored and you want to do a little fun, you should just apply for an internship and check it out.
Just that it's been an incredible opportunity and I'm really thankful for it.
With the medical field, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that, but now I might, and I was thinking about becoming an EMT possibly.
I think that it's a great experience no matter what you do. Even if you don't enjoy it, it's really good to know that you don't enjoy that so that you know what not to do. And if you do enjoy it, then you know what to sort of steer yourself towards in the future. And there's really nothing bad that can come from it.
I would definitely encourage any high schooler to do an internship because you realize that you can have a really fulfilling purpose in your community. Like, I've realized that I love working with other people and that being in my community is so important to me. And I think that anyone who does an internship will realize that they have a place and that they have a purpose in helping others.
Thanks for watching. If you're interested in learning more about the summer internship program for next year, contact Ms. Rodino at the Arlington High School Career Center.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about that. So I had a couple of learning goals and objectives for this project during the summer. I was able to create, or I wanted to create 3 different videos. One being the extension for the high school building, the safety and security at the school, so the entryways, the front entryways, the walks, everything like that. I was really just able to hone in on my skills from previous classes like journalism. And I was really hoping that I could just take that further into more of a job setting. And I was able to just communicate with a bunch of different people. I had the opportunity to do interviews for students as well as people at the district office for things like the Cool Bus project. I was able to do a news release on that and get that up and out for the people to see that we are doing great things for our community. And really, I just, like I said before, I wanted to hone in on this experience, being able to talk to more people. And I just wanted to say that I'm grateful that I did have this opportunity. Thank you to Mr. Rodino, and thank you to Gary Sable, as well as everybody who helped out. Thank you again.
Gary,
Yeah,
as a supervisor,
yes.
input, what did you think?
I thought it was great. I thought, one thing that surprised me was how prepared Mia was. And I attribute that to Miss Heyman at the high school. She already knew a lot of photography skills, videography, editing, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. It was also like the best part was watching her interview other interns and administrators, things like that. It was just, for me, it was kind of reinvigorating. It was great seeing a student who excelled at what she wanted to do. So that was great.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Thank you.
Next, we look at Bailey.
Well, my name is Bailey Linkletter. I'm a junior at Arlington High School, and I interned with the City of Arlington in the Community and Economic Development Department. So I kind of say at first I was drawn to this because I've grown up with my dad, who was a contractor, and my grandpa was an architect, and I kind of always wanted to go into the field similar to that, but I didn't know much about it, literally speaking. So this was an amazing opportunity to kind of find out that's really something I wanted to go into. That was really something I enjoyed doing, what aspects of it I wanted to look into more, despite what aspects might not seem as good to me in the future. So I started off with working cataloging for the neighborhoods in Arlington. So the comprehensive plan is the City of Arlington's plan for what Arlington will look like in the next 10 years. And I got to be a part of that. So my job was cataloging neighborhoods. I would take pictures of them from different areas and see what dates they were like originally plotted. So I would use different sites such as the files on our computers in the office, or the auditor's page, which is for public records. And I learned so much. I also got to see our actual file room. I don't think I've seen so many files in my entire life. And this was an amazing experience. I got to see, I learned so much about Arlington, not just like history, but also how to get places. And like literally speaking, I learned different parts of Arlington I didn't know. I learned parts of Arlington and like areas. I learned where our actual city borders were and what that included for different rights, despite if you lived in Arlington but outside the borders. Something that I found one of my favorite things was when I got to be a part of the street market during the beginning. We had 2 days. Well, there's a 3-day market, and I worked for the first 2 days of it. So the first day I worked with Amy Resco, and I got to see we were showing 3 projects that we're currently working on. And we answered questions about those projects and about other projects and different questions people would have about Arlington and what's going on in the building parts of it. So the first day, I didn't really answer many questions. I just kind of saw Amy do it. I saw how she answered, how she handled working with the community. But the next day, I kind of took it on for myself. I would man the department by my entire self. I would people would leave and I'd answer questions and I knew what I was talking about. And for me, that felt amazing because I had responsibility and I could show what I really learned. And it was something that I like never really seen before. I could trust myself and that I was independent in that way. And it was something that I love, probably a highlight for me of the entire thing is answering people's questions, knowing what I was saying. I could tell them anything they needed to know, despite only like hearing about it for a day. And so that's something I'll probably always remember. And another highlight for me is when I actually get to see my name on the comprehensive plan when it's finally done. So despite what I learned, because that was amazing throughout the internship, I also learned stuff about my future jobs. So I learned that I love this, that I got to do different inspections. I got to see the actual building, which was amazing for me, because that's something I've always wanted to do. I got to see like architecture plan. I got to work with house plans, like see actual people's plans and see what needed to be approved in them and what would work, what wouldn't work. But I also learned that I wanted a job. I learned that I have to work with people, that I learned that I can't be by myself for like several hours in the office by myself, that I'd probably go crazy if I was. And so one of my favorite things about it was working with different people, meeting new people, meeting council members, meeting people in my office, members of the community. And so that was by far one of my favorite parts about it. So I learned so much about myself, about the job, really just an incredible experience that I'll probably never forget. And I would definitely recommend it to anyone. So all in all, I think I'd recommend it to anybody, and I learned so much and I can't be thankful enough for it.
Thank you for sharing, Daly.
My name is Juliana Pinion. I'm a junior at Arlington High School, and I interned for patient engagement on the oncology floor. So since I was about 6 or 7, I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field, and having this opportunity was kind of opened my eyes to like a new world. So being on the oncology floor, obviously, I've seen quite a bit through this summer. Lots of patients passing away, seeing people, in distress and just trying to help them as best as I could. And this experience really impacted me, and I think for the better. It really solidified that I want to be in the medical field. And one experience that I had that really stuck with me was I was leaving, and I had ran into this very kind woman going down the elevator, and she was carrying a bag of someone's belongings. So I looked at her, she looked at me, she was crying, and I look at her and I go, "You look like you need a hug." She turns and she looks at me and she goes, "I just lost my husband. He lost his battle to stage 4 cancer. And he was 60. They were married for 40 years. Never got her name, so she's an anonymous, very kind woman. So as soon as I found out that she had lost her husband, I immediately pulled her into a hug and she just broke down. We actually fell onto the floor crying. We were there for about 5 minutes. I was just holding her. I was crying, And the whole time she was just expressing to me how grateful she was for Providence and the staff and how great the nurses and doctors were. So yeah, when we got her picked up, put together, there's 4 elevators in the hospital. And she goes, "Elevator 13. I'm like, "Why are you saying that?" Elevator 13 opens and she goes, "That's the date that we got married." I've gone elevator 13 every single time I've been here. And I go, "I was born on the 13th.
Yeah.
So I think that really solidified that I was in the right place at the right time. And this internship really proved that this is what I wanted to do. Thank you.
Thank you. for sharing. Well, we need the tissues now.
I'm a junior at Arlington High School. My name is Mia Martin. I also did a Providence internship. I was on the surgical waiting floor. So on that floor, I did a lot of patient interaction. I did a lot of checking in. I did a lot of filing. I was able to go in the back rooms and I was able to see a little bit of how the inside of the hospital works. It's a lot different than I thought it was. I cleaned rooms, I discharged patients, and I saw like a lot of struggling families. To add on to that part of the internship, we also do the Camp Prov, and I experienced a really impactful memory there that I'm not going to forget. when Jules and I first got assigned our camper at Camp Prov, we were told that she was really hard to get out of her shell. She was really shy. She was really hard to get engaged in camp with the other kids. We made it our challenge to make her feel as welcomed as she could and made sure that she could enjoy the camp for the week that she was there. While we were there, she would talk down on herself a lot, and it was really exciting for us to hear. So whenever we would enter into like the lunchroom or like the water park, we would hold her hands up. We'd each be on each side of her, and we'd hold her hands up, and we tell her like, pretty girls go first, pretty girls go first, like you go first. We got really close with her in this week, and we were told by past camp leaders that she's never enjoyed the camp this much and she's never been this engaged before. That made us feel really good that we were able to impact her so much, and that we were the reason that she was able to have such a good time that she did. She's the reason why I want to go back to my Providence next year, so I can do the internship again and experience Camp Prov again. Thank you.
All right, so we will wrap up. So some of the things that the intern said, a couple of my favorites were, they didn't realize how important Excel was. And there's actually a use for Excel. So we're like, yes, okay. One of the other ones was learning good customer service allows your business to get traction. So all of these things that the students had the opportunity to learn that had direct application. One of my favorite ones was a student told me that it's really hard to struggle through when you don't have an answer to a question, or there are so many answers to questions that you have to figure out which way to go, and there's no right answer, but you've got to struggle with that. What some of the supervisors said was Kathleen was the one at Andrews Hay, and all of the hundreds of pounds of food that she helped grow and deliver to the food bank, and actually being able to see her success. And seeing a student grow professionally and personally from the first day to the last day. So it was a really great summer. It was fabulous. I know one of the questions you asked me last year was what went not so well. So I came prepared. Transportation is still an issue. I had 3 students and 2 of them had to drop off. They were already placed in internships, but due to family commitments and transportation, that was a difficulty. One of the things that I think I need to do a better job is help solidify with the businesses whenever they write their learning objectives to actually start getting more of a calendar. Some of them are very flexible, which is great, and some of them are very, very strict. So I think we need to kind of find a balance. Some of the other school districts do a 5 to 6 week internship as opposed to going all summer. And a couple of our internships did that this year. They had one intern for a month and another intern for another month. And that went very well because it was very planned out. So I think I need to strike a balance between flexibility, but if you've got a strict schedule, you can still have some flexibility in that. So I'll work on that next year, but it'll be year 3 next year. So we'll see what else happens. Are there any other questions?
Sounded just like universal design for learning. Okay, I know what Camp Prov is because I have kids that attended Camp Prov. It's a wonderful program. Could somebody explain what Camp Prov is?
Camp Prov is a camp for students with disabilities and their siblings, and they go down there for a week. There is a morning session and an afternoon session, and all of the students get to go, and everybody has a buddy. And each one of them, but they can have a disabled buddy or a sibling or who's not disabled, but it's an opportunity for the entire family to get out and go to Camp Prov, and there's activities, water activities,
Water parks, trail walks,
lots of singing, lots of singing.
crafts, everything. It's really fun.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I wondered, what's gonna happen with this video that you made? Are we gonna use it elsewhere on the?
This is our springboard to introducing it to next year.
Yeah.
So that was the whole goal of this, is we will use this when we roll out the program next year to our 10th and 11th graders, our rising 11th and 12th graders. Absolutely. It will get used again.
I wanted to make a comment that it's really, but just the learning part, the academic learning part, or just the vocational learning part. But what I heard a lot too is the human part of what the internship did for you. And just connecting to people and serving people as you were learning that vocational, the area that you chose. It didn't matter. So thank you for sharing that.
Can I just make a commentary? So I just wanted to say that from a legislative standpoint, I definitely, I know this is one of the priorities we've talked about, and I would like to see how this can be included, the success, Lisa, that you've had with this program. I know it's early days, but still tooting the horn a little bit and promoting what this has done and what your plans are for the future, what that growth might look like, and just sharing that with our legislators. I'm not sure who would be visiting the high school, I guess, but I definitely think it's worth broadcasting, and congratulations on such a success to you, the program, and the students.
We do have a legislator that's visiting with the board visit this Wednesday to the high school.
Thank you.
But the one thing that you could always say is you always say, be kinder than necessary. And whenever I learned about Jules' story and she told me that, I was like, that is embodying being kinder than necessary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do our student advisors have any questions about these summer internships?
Yeah, actually I do. So as a junior, I'm hearing about different opportunities and different kind of paths to go down. And I have known about it for a while now, but I also heard a lot of my friends and other students who are like concerned about and like nervous about taking these internships because they don't really know what it's about. So as you guys taking these internships, what advice would you have for students who do feel kind of anxious about going into it?
I think just, dive head first. I mean, there's nothing else you really can do. I was super nervous the first couple days, but the staff was very welcoming. And just know that it's an experience of a lifetime, so. And I originally took this internship because I was worried about taking an actual job. It seemed so far away to me, yet it was where I was at in life, I guess. And so an internship seemed like a great opportunity to kind of get that step first. And there's so many different options that are applied to what you actually know and like already. Like this is something I already knew I wanted to do. And like they mentioned about their internships in the medical field, and that's something they knew they wanted to do. So you can also follow something that you've already loved. It's kind of a great opportunity to kind of explore that more. So it's really just, and there's so many people around to help you. You're not alone. You're never alone.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mrs. Eugenio. Is there like a limit on how many students can be involved in the internship program?
There's not technically a limit, but there's how much can I handle? I'm thinking if we can grow to 25 to 30. Because I think it's extremely important for me to be able to do visits, to make sure that the businesses know that I'm there, to make sure the students know that I'm there. I could cut back on some of that, but cutting what sacrifices by me cutting back on that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And Providence does such an incredible job because I'm piggybacking on theirs. I think that could certainly grow.
Yeah.
But I do like to stop in and see what they're doing, see what they're learning, because that's part of it. So I'm thinking 25 to 30. Once I get to 25 and 30, ask me again and I'll be like, we'll see if I could add on some more. I would just need to scale back a little bit, maybe of the personal touch, but I think that's what makes our program special, is because students know they have access to me. Businesses know they have access to me. I'm on vacation and they have access to me. And I think that's super important to especially have a program like this to make sure that everybody's comfortable.
And then I have another question. So that you said this is the third year that you've
We just did the second,
This is
and
the
so this
second.
coming summer will be
Can I
the third.
just ask what started the whole idea of having the program?
This actually started between Arlington Public Schools and the city of Arlington prior to COVID. Pre-COVID, and then it was supposed to launch in March and COVID shut it down. Some people left, so there was some turnover and change. When I got hired 3 years ago, they were like, start the internship program. I was like, okay, cool. So it was actually a cooperative program through Arlington Public Schools in the city of Arlington. They really forged a relationship very strong, and they wanted to make this accessible to students and local businesses.
Yeah, and we actually together There hired a consultant to help us plan. And we spent 6 months, 8 months planning with that consultant and then.
Can I just say that this was an incredibly uplifting and inspirational presentation, and all of your interns have changed our community and impacted it in such a positive way. And I hope that the experience has brought you not just some joy, but some job skills and some training for your next step in wherever you go. And we hope that you stay local and serve local.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here tonight. You're welcome to stay for the whole day, if you like, but you don't have to.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we'll have our approval of the minutes. And we have our study session and regular meeting minutes from September 25th. Do we have any amendments, or do we have a motion to approve our minutes from September 25th as presented?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes from September 25th.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the study session and regular meeting minutes from September 25th. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nap.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, we would have the public comment portion. If we had anyone signed up or interested. So we don't. So next we'll go to our consent agenda, which consists of our personnel report, our payroll report, non-representative classified salary schedule update, warrants, overnight and out-of-state field trip for AHS journalism to Boston, Massachusetts, Walden University field site affiliation agreement, and the approval of our board superintendent team goals for 23-24. Do we have anything anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda, or can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make
I
a
make a
motion.
motion, we. Go ahead, Erica.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nap.
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to our new business. And the first thing on our new business portion of our meeting is our City of Arlington interlocal agreement concerning pickleball courts. This is the most fun. And so we would like to have Dr. Sweeting explain that to us, and then we'll take action.
Yes, this is the second time we've discussed this, and I'm gonna show, I'm gonna share my screen, hopefully, to show where the pickleball courts. So you see this highlighted yellow right here. So it's to the east of Haller, that's the location. And in the agreement that is before you, the city's responsibilities, they agree to constructing 6 courts with fencing in that area. And they also will provide online communication to our community on their webpage about the opportunity here. They'll maintain all the fixtures and they'll do all the improvements. So our responsibility as a school district is to provide the property as seen here in this exhibit and allow access to that, to the courts for the public during the school year after school's out. So the weekdays after 3 p.m. to dusk. And then when school is not in session, like on the weekends or during the summer, it'd be from dawn to dusk. So it's a partnership with the city, but there is a grant through the Snohomish County, the councilman Nate Marin, that is involved in funding this as well. So what questions do you have?
What's the timeline for this? Like, when would we start construction and then when would it be finished?
I'm not exactly sure, except that I know that the grant, it happened, my guess, it would be during the summer that they would start, if spring or summer, because they're working now on the budget for this next year, and the grant had to go in, and this approval goes with that grant. And so it takes time for that to get in place. But my my thought is that it would be this spring that they would start, they would begin. I don't think it'd be wise to do it during the winter.
Because there's pavement.
Right, pavement.
And there's certain temperatures. I'm not an expert on this, but yeah,
We
good,
didn't-
good temperatures
yeah.
for that.
Common sense, yeah. I'd say spring to summer. And also, one more thing we're to provide was parking, so just access to parking.
Any more questions? Nathan?
Just, we're concerned about safety, how like allowing the public to use it, but then making sure that they're not using it during school hours.
Yeah,
Would it be locked during school hours?
there will be a ban. Well, the school actually can use it. The students can actually use it.
Right.
During the day, but there wouldn't be. It would be just like the field. So like, you have just around the whole area of the school, it's the same process. So if there's someone on there that shouldn't be on there, they're asked to leave, so.
Similar to tennis courts.
Yes.
Will there be signage?
Yes, there'll be signs. Yeah. And we have the principal of Howard Middle School right here, and I think she would, do you have anything to say about bringing this on board?
We're excited about it.
I do have a question. I think we might have talked about this, but it's been a while. What was the cost for this? Do we?
I
It's
don't know,
just
it doesn't
all in
cost
the
us
grant?
anything.
Oh, it doesn't.
We're
cover us.
not, it doesn't cost us.
Okay.
The school district does not fund it. It's a funding by the city and the Snohomish County through a grant. The councilman has a certain amount of money that they put towards a community grant. So and this is a project that they like to put forth for our community.
Okay.
And just what we have to provide is the land and access to that and to parking. And they'll do all the rest. It's like the garden we have out here. That's a partnership with the city and we provide the land. They put up the fence. They put up the arbor and they mow it and they do all the things for it. They take care of it. And the signing, they put up the signs.
Got it.
Sweetie, will it be fenced in and will there be
Yes.
signs on the fence?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And could the school board maybe possibly challenge each other to some kind of pickleball duel? Is that what we call it? Is it a duel?
If you direct me to do that.
I think it's a match. A match.
Match.
Duel seems a little harsh.
Could be a team building exercise someday. Could be
Like the axe throwing.
Right, axe throwing. But pickleball is probably safer.
Allen has pickleball units, so our kids are doing it indoors already. So I think they'll be really excited. It's part of their PE curriculum.
Does Heller have axe throwing?
Axe throwing,
Yeah.
You too.
Oh, dear.
All right. Any further questions about pickleball? Sorry, I'm trying to be aggressive. Okay, so this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with the city of Arlington concerning pickleball courts as presented?
I'll make a motion, we approve the interlocal agreement with the city of Arlington concerning pickleball courts.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement with the city of Arlington for pickleball. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Now.
Aye.
Yay, pickleball. Okay, next up, we're gonna have a overview of our federal and state grants. I'd like to welcome Carrie Henderson Burke. How do you feel about pickleball?
Excited. I've never actually played, and I'm a terrible tennis player, so I assume I'll be the same at pickleball, but
I hear
still
it's
fun.
easier for maybe the older generation that might be mobility impaired because it goes slower than
Oh,
tennis.
but that's definitely a step in my favor. Slow is good.
All right, we're excited to hear from you about federal and state grants.
Let me share my screen. Okay. So this is definitely a tag team presentation. Carl and Dave also have large portions of the content that we're going to cover, just so you know. But really, the pickleball court is a grant. A lot of the action that happens in our district is grant funded. And so we want to talk to you about a bunch of grants. My part in this grant management is Title $2. They are a primary source of professional development for our teaching staff. So it is a federal grant, they're federal funds. The official title is Teacher and Principal Training and Recruiting Fund. We haven't, in my time here, used any funds for recruiting. It's all been teacher training. So, and this year we have $112 and some change allocated and quite a bit of carryover from last year, which is going to be put to good use. So, the first thing we want to talk about is Title $2 are potentially shared with private schools in our area. And so the schools have to be physically within the Arlington boundary. At this time, there's only one that's actually physically in our boundary, and they have opted to not participate. So there's that. So all the money will stay right here in our own schools. We're really with Title $2 supporting three core ideas, three core actions this year. We're actually funding our elementary school improvement teams out of this. Because of the role, because our elementaries have acted largely in concert when it comes to providing professional development for all 4 elementaries and SBLC. And so because of the role SIP teams play in rolling out that professional development and acting as lead learners before presenting to staff and working with staff and their grade level teams, this is a great conduit for some of the professional development that we have planned around UDL this year. The other 2 areas are content area support, and they're both math oriented and they're both elementary oriented. We're totally giving our secondary schools the shot. Kidding. Our secondary schools will benefit from kids that come up with strong math skills. Really, we've known for the last few years, our middle school math scores have struggled. This year was yet again, and we have to solve this problem. And so we purchased some math training modules through a man named Graham Fletcher, who is fabulous. He is very child development oriented. He's a mathematician himself. He's quite brilliant, and he has 2 training modules, one for primary grades on early numeracy and the development of it, and fractions for grades 3 through 5. We've known for a number of years that middle school math and elementary fraction concepts are intimately connected. We've done some work with some lead teams on both of these areas. In fact, I led the early numeracy group last year, and we went through Graham's modules, and the number one gesture about what we learned was this. That was very, like, every time we met, people were like, okay, wow, it was incredible. But this year it's time to, so we've provided movement through Title II for small groups of teachers. We're providing this for all of our elementary teachers at this point because we need to. So a good percentage of our Title II dollars are going towards this training, but it's pretty great stuff. And then we are also funding a math coach or math TOSA because we want our SIP teams and our Graham Fletcher modules to have on the ground kind of mobile support that's math specific. So Amy Henry is being funded half out of Title II this year to provide that support and be in schools. She will model lessons. She will help develop lessons with teachers. She will follow up on Graham Fletcher kinds of questions. She will be our mobile response math team or math lead, if you will. So now, if you've done the math, you know this adds up to more than $112,000. But by the time we add in the carryover, we're within budget on Title II. Do you have any questions on this particular? It's simpler. Like we've usually had more than 3 parts to it.
Is the math coach and the TOSA that's for elementary also, or is it for all grades? Okay.
Amy is K-12.
Okay.
Her elementary half, because it's so deeply rooted in UDL and math training. Her elementary half is funded out of Title II.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
she's still available with secondary for 50% of her work life.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
So the middle schoolers that are struggling with fractions, can they access some of the same instruction? Can their teachers also have? Kind of overlap?
It is a license purchase. However, we did, there were teachers that served students in resource rooms and in self-contained programs at the secondary level who looked at the training and worked with Dave to fund that out of special ed dollars. So yes, there are programs that will benefit.
And then as for the math codes themselves, is it like a student can request access to them, say they were having a lot of difficulties?
So good question. These are actually teacher training modules. So it's understanding how math develops both developmentally with kids, but also the progression of conceptual development that we need to structure and scaffold for kids as they grow through elementary. It's really quite astounding. I mean, I know I've got an elementary thing, but the volume of growth, the percentage of growth that happens in that little K2 time, they're still little by the time they exit second grade, but it's amazing what they've covered and what they've gone through. So to have that deeper level knowledge of how to support in order the math concepts. And that was some of the feedback we got last year, was like teachers were saying, like, I knew sort of loosely what concepts to develop. I didn't realize there was a logical progression through the concepts. So we think that's one of the holes that this is filling for our tiny people instruction. Yeah. Okay. Next we'll have, I think Carl is a panelist, and so he's going to take us through 17 or 19 different grants. Carl manages a lot of grants, and so he will be talking us through the next ones. Carl, let me know when you need me to advance the slide forward.
Perfect. And I'll try not to take you through 17 or 19, but we'll do a good handful tonight. How's that sound? And can everyone hear me okay?
Good.
Perfect. All right. So I'm Carl Olson, Director of Categorical Programs, and we're going to start with Title I, Part A, which I will say there'll be a lot of similarities between this grant and the next state grant of LAP. Title I is a federal funded grant, and the initial apportionment was, right there about $745,000. And we do work mainly at the elementary level. The grant itself can go from pre-K up through 12th, so we may investigate some early learning things in the future. But our focus is on schools in our district who are part of the school-wide program. So Kent Prairie and Eagle Creek each have over 40% free and reduced lunch. And so those two buildings get these funds, and then we support other buildings with additional LAP funds. They're rank ordered, and part of that rank ordering means that the per student cost needs to be higher at the building with the highest free and reduced lunch. And as you can see, it is basically a 0.32% difference between the two buildings. So they're very similar. All right, Carrie, I'm ready. So this is kind of the breakdown of our staffing. And when we're talking about staff, a majority would be our remedial staff, and we continue to get great growth. We typically need to look for more than a year's growth with our remedial programs because we're working on closing that gap. And our focus is on reading and math. Also within this, some of these funds for Eagle Creek are used to pay their care TOSA, which is the person working on social emotional support, small groups, data, and working with staff to support those needs. And then we have what's called set aside. So our budget is actually one of the larger budgets that supports our homeless students, everything from supplies, some transportation assistance, but also helping to provide access for if they want to do sports, music, other activities, so that we can make sure that they have what they need for those supports. And then also family engagement. And if there were some applicable private schools, we did have 5 different schools from around the area reach out to us that are outside of our district, but have kids that live within our district, but none of them qualified. So we ended up not having to set that aside. Pretty minimal for administrative costs, and those are not like for administrators, but for like professional development, curriculum, supplies. Some money needs to be set aside to cover in case we have to cover a leave for a staff member because they are working directly with kids and we want to keep up that support. And then there should be a little bit of carryover. So you may notice that the numbers don't quite gel, but we're hoping for a little bit of carryover from last year to help support the program. So I'll stop there to see if there's any questions about Title I.
I do have a question. Talking about the social emotional supports, what's the difference between a person who provides that and then the student support advocate? Is that the same?
They are different. The student support advocates through a county grant, Snohomish County, and they can focus on multiple grade levels. Ours mostly focus on middle and high school. And those support advocates, they actually do work a little bit with me, more with Brian Long on some of the homeless supports for kids. They do a lot more than that, but they will reach out to me sometimes talking about funding to give access for some of the kids on their caseload. But our, both through LAP and through Title I, our CARE TOSAs, they are more providing sometimes direct support for a teacher to learn new strategies for the classroom for social emotional support. We started last year and are continuing this year a social emotional screener. And from that and other input, they actually do small groups, work on social skills, both for those kids that are having internal or external type behaviors. So much more related to the elementary field in terms of that. So
Okay, that clears it up. Thank you.
you betcha. All right, LAP, a lot of similarities again, with a new twist for this year. So just a little bit over 1.5 million granted for this year. And this is based heavily on our district enrollment. So this may actually go up a touch, but it's pretty well set for this year. And again, it's the reading, writing, and math, excuse me, and the CARE team, which is that behavior intervention support that we talked about. All 4 elementary schools and then also SVLC receive LAP funding. In addition, and I might have this on the next slide, Carrie, why don't you bring it there and I'll see if I put it there or not. I did. Okay, so I'll keep going. Very similar, except for double the funds, where this covers our teachers so that each building has both a math and a reading remedial teacher. We break it up more by grade level bands, primary and intermediate, so that one remedial teacher only has, for instance, 3 PLCs to meet with for scheduling, intervention planning, and things like that. And then again, a number of classified remedial staff also helping with small groups. The CARE amount is there, and this is for those social emotional supports. And then we're adding this year to Open Doors, which is housed at Weston, some high poverty funds. I just saw today this might have gone up a couple thousand, so I'm watching that. But Jeremy Hurtis, who is the coordinator for Open Doors, and I and OSPI are working on a program that gives some flexibility to offer outside of what would be called the typical school day supports for students that frequently have very different schedules. Some of these young adults are working. Some of them have some other responsibilities in their lives where they need some outside the day tutoring beyond what we would call a typical school day. So these funds allow us to deliver those supports. And so that is something new for this year we're pretty excited about. And then, as before, the typical professional development and curriculum and supplies takes up, about 20,000 total. So most of it's going directly into staff to support the needs that we have determined are most prevalent for our students. So any questions about LAP? All right, and I think, I'm going to keep going. Okay, transitional bilingual. And when you hear me say TBIP, that's this one. And this is a state fund. This is actually one of the grants you approved at the last board meeting. And this is one that I think the need for this is more and more every year as our count of students who are learning English as a second, sometimes third language grows. We have easily gained more than 100 students who qualify for these services since 2 years ago when I started. And we're also continuing to see more newcomers come from a wide variety of countries. So this gives us money to hire both our interpreter tutors who work with kids, pays for part of 2 instructional coaches. We are embarking this year on a co-teaching model at the high school in 2 English classes. So we have 2 teachers, including one who is dual certified and has that bilingual certification. And then with that, some of our program needs as we work, especially with these kids, on increasing their ability to speak and write. We're finding strong success with listening, strong growth with reading, but hesitancy for speaking and just needing more skills in the areas of writing. So we're really going to be focusing on that for this year. Okay, next slide, and we'll see if I should pause. There's the expenditures. And again, it covers the bulk of 2 of our instructional coaches / teachers, and then our classified staff and our interpreter tutors are literally just a wonderful staff group, so dedicated on meeting the needs of our families. They just go above and beyond. And then curriculum and supplies, and then some administrative costs and family engagement. So any questions about TBIP? Now y'all know what TBIP means.
Carl, how many staff members do we have that are bilingual?
Staff members that are bilingual, I'm not sure in terms of the number of teachers. I can tell you we have a total of 24 teachers that have a certification in either bilingual or, English as a second language certification. In terms of bilingual beyond this staff, I don't have those specific numbers. I do know, just because we've talked about this for emergency purposes, that administrators are aware of which people are out there that are available. And as far as actually being able to interpret, that's where it gets much smaller in terms of people with specific interpreting and translating training. And in that case, we have, right about 7. So much smaller once you get to that training.
How many students have we identified as being English language learners?
360 right now as of today.
Quite a bit more than I expected.
Yes, definitely growing. And that also, doesn't include, we have a lot of families that need help with interpreting and translation who the students may have exited from services, but the parents still need those services. So we also make sure to prepare for those too. All right, Title III. Again, this is kind of one of the partners with TBIP. It's a it's a federal grant. And we also were able to receive a grant called Title IV-A, which I can transfer over to this one to support the needs. So you'll hear me every so often talk about braiding funds, where I'm taking funds from different grants so we have enough to truly support the needs of our students. And this supports a variety of things. It supports our part of the time for our instructional coaches who have scheduled time either during the day or up to 2 days during the week to work with teachers for co-planning, for providing strategies, those kinds of activities. So we're really building the capacity of all our teachers to work with students who are learning English, which, as we know, is not just our student from other countries, but also students of trauma, students of poverty. And with the overuse of technology, we're really having a lot of need for language growth. Another part, this does fund our parent English class. We'll be starting our 3rd year of this on October 17th. We're doing some final recruiting of parents, and we have quite a cadre of us that are ready to go on in every Tuesday night for the next few months. We usually do 2 quarters of this, and it truly is wonderful. And we've literally had families who the parents started in this English class 2 weeks after entering the country. So there's definitely a need out there. And then also for our Native American, Alaska Native supports, we actually combine Title III with Title VI funds. And so far we're supporting a staff member on Fridays who goes and meets with specific students who are at risk and have screened in just for some extra supports, connections, learning tribal heritage, things like that. So we started that midway last year and are continuing that this year. And I believe that's it for Title III. So Carrie, we'll see if there's a surprise for me next. Oh, there is. So I will keep going. All right. So specifics, 2,500 for Flashlight 360 training. This is a new program that really targets the areas of speaking and listening and prepares students better to organize their thoughts and gain vocabulary and then put them into expressive language. We are part of our local ESD's Multilingual Language Learner Cooperative. This provides training for myself, administrators, staff members, lots of networking, which is very helpful. So we're constantly meeting with each other to see what we're doing. The funds there for the instructional coaching. And we've talked about language learning for parents and guardians, and then the Native American Alaska Native support. So there you go. Now I think I'm done. So
There's 2
questions.
slides at the end for high cap. If you want to skip to that, then I'll do this. Yeah, it's keep going, keep going.
All right. And this will be the last one you'll hear from me. Any questions on Title III first? Okay, highly capable. So this is a state grant, and normally you folks would have approved the grant, but due to some technical things they're working on in OSPI, the grant itself won't become open, I've heard, until January. So we've already secured the funds, but I will be coming back to you with the official grant paperwork sometime in January, early February. So just so you know, my timeline's a little off. They're switching their grant systems, so that will be coming up. We anticipate $183,000 for this year. Most of it goes towards supporting Verlaine Myers, who is our instructional coach in this area, working with staff. She does work with students, does trainings, a lot of one-on-one support with teachers who are either clustering or trying new strategies. We even have one teacher at one room who has 14 highly capable kids, 4th and 5th grade in one class, trying a kind of a new model to see how that works and then really supporting to help that work for the kids. The kids qualify through academic and cognitive assessments. You might have noticed that the open referral process just started here at the beginning of October, where parents of students of all grade levels or community members, students themselves, we've had them do that, or staff can refer students to possibly look at a referral for further testing. And then our charge is just to have a continuum of services. This year, there's a lot of what I would call some kind of interesting experiments out there. We have one middle school with their win time every day that we are clustering these kids to work together on some activities. We have the example at the elementary I shared with you. We have in one building some specialists who are really owning some of this process with the kids. So we're trying some different models to see what's working, and Verlaine and I are working with administrators to keep discussing those and talk about new strategies to support these kids. I think there's another slide. There we go. So there's the cost, which really comes down to our high cap facilitator. And again, you'll hear us switching to instructional coach a lot, like you heard with Title II, really trying to build their capacity to empower staff. And then the rest is for COGAT testing, and that is for our screening materials. We're required to screen second grade. We do that in January. And then this year required to screen a second grade level. And we will be starting the process with fifth grade here very soon. And then to support any professional development for Verlaine Myers or activities that come up. But we pretty much spent it, to be honest with you, probably more so. So that's on hold. All right, any questions?
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Dave's on, so I'll share this. So for special education, and I will say that Dave and Brenda Booth are going to share a report about the different programs in special education, the different services on November 13th at that board meeting. But the grant itself, the IDEA grant, is it's to serve our students that have been identified with special needs. And we use both state and federal dollars. And there's the federal funds, you can see that there are three different ways. And there's an application process for that. The state fund, it supports the main portion of our special education program. And I will say that, and you'll see in a moment on the next slide, that it does not fully fund what we need for special education. There was recent legislation that changed the cap to 15%, but we have over 15% of our students who have been identified that need to have special services, special needs. So the state fund for special education, it does allow us to offset to some degrees the needs that are there for supporting students that have special needs. And it also, there's funding there for our preschool. So when a student has been identified at the time at birth, like from birth to 3, there's a child find process. In fact, there's a child find process that goes all the way from birth until maybe 21. We are always in that the look for those students that need support. Anyway, we have a grant for preschool that's ages 3 to 5, but then we have it all the way to 21. Let's go back to that one. Just want to make sure I covered that. And then we have the 3 through 5, which is that section 619. Now we can go to the next slide. Thanks. So our projected revenue for this year is, as you can see, over 14 million. And that is to serve at the moment an estimate of 875. In a moment, you'll see how that the number of students that grows over the year. So we start with a lower number and end with a higher number. And you can see that. So in our budget, in our general fund budget for our staff overall for the district, it's about 87% for staff. But in this case, for special education, of the revenue that we receive, 94% of all the revenue. It's very high because it's the people that we need to help with the services. So it's very high. So the projected expenditures, you can see they're above it. And then we have, so there's the projected major expenditures, then there's contracted services. So we contract out to non-public agencies as well. So that's like maybe it'd be for the School for the Blind, or it might be could be a private place in another state possibly, or not in Arlington. And so right now you can see that represents 6 students. And then of course we have supplies. So basically at the very bottom of what we have $365,000, almost $366,000 that we subsidize, or that the general fund subsidizes for special education. And we're working on that. That's a lot, but we have to serve the needs of the students. And this is where you'll see later on the legislative priorities that we are asking the state to fully fund special education.
What does NPA stand for?
Non-public agency. So that is a private agency that's providing services or related services on behalf of the public education system for students with special needs. That's what that stands for. And then this just shows over time how we've grown in the number of students with special needs. And you can see that we start each year at a certain number, but then it grows. So if you look at last year, we started with 812, which is less. We end at high and we start a little bit less. It's less than the previous year, then we go up. So we ended up with 135 more. So that's the pattern. You can see the pattern of them. So, and what Dave McKellar and Brenda Booth will do November 13th, they'll share about the programs and the services. What programs do we have available? What services do we have available to meet the needs of these individuals?
Dr. Sweeting, quick question for you. What causes that growth? That seems quite substantial.
Well, we have new students that come in and you know, they come in with already having an individual education plan, you know.
Okay.
They've already, so that just ebbs and flows. And it's, as you know, our elementary population grows over the year. That has
True.
something to.
Okay, so it's generally new people, new students coming into the population, not diagnoses through the year.
It's both. It's a combination of both.
Okay. Thank you.
And these numbers don't represent the preschool or do they?
That's a good question. It's a great question.
Okay,
I want to say that they do, but I'd have to confirm that with Dave.
okay,
Which I will.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for that overview. That was a lot of good information. Appreciate the time that went into sharing that. Next up, we'll have our levies and bond update. I'd like to welcome Gina, maybe, and Brian. Gina was here, right?
She is.
She's right. She's there. You can't see her. Oh, like there she is. She's on there. She's in the secret spot.
We'll be running a slideshow. Right?
I heard her voice and I thought she was on a laptop somewhere.
Here.
She's having
Slideshow version instead
got to plug her computer in because battery is dying. So
of.
that's why she's looking at where she is.
Brian gets to go.
So I'll be covering, good evening, directors. Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations. Tonight, I'll be covering the capital and bond levy proposal component of our presentation. Oops. Just a quick recap of the Facilities Advisory Committee recommendation to the superintendent. I presented this before. The Facilities Advisory Committee made a recommendation to the superintendent in July for three different activities. One was to replace post-middle school via bond funding. Number two was to study the future via the Facilities Advisory Committee of SVLC and Weston High School facilities, not the program, but the facilities. And then a range of options to continue building improvements via the capital levy. Quick update about the SVLC and Weston High School study. We will begin that at our FAC meeting on October 19th this month. I've already begun working with Chris Lilly from McGranahan Architecture to start defining what the educational specifications for each program, what their requirements are in terms of structure, what kind of building would they need to support the program as it's currently constructed, and maybe in the future what changes could come about. I can tell you right now, SVLC needs more parking. Without a doubt. So On our calendar today, a look at the refined EP&O facilities request. October 23rd, we hope to bring you resolutions for your consideration for ballot questions for these two funding measures, as well as the EP&O levy. And then February 13th, 2024 is election day. As was pointed out to me recently, ballots will be mailed approximately 21 days prior to February 13th. So election day could be conceivably begin at the mid January 21st, I believe was the date. When voters would start casting ballots, or at least receive the ballots in the mail. So a lot of this is a repeat from our September 25th board workshop, so I'm not going to spend time on every slide. I just wanted to give you what the updated amounts were and give you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. The cost for the different ranges of capital levy, which if you'll recall, we proposed 3 separate options for the capital levy, each building upon the prior, with the first option primarily focused on building, roofing, painting, siding repairs, and some plumbing and electrical and internet issues that we're experiencing in the buildings. The cost of that levy option would be $16,500,000, and the estimated levy rate per $1,000 of assessed valuation is 50 cents per 1,000. The initial estimate that we had for a levy rate was 46 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. Option 2 builds on option 3 and includes some more flooring work throughout the district's buildings. The estimated rate there is 54 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And the prior estimate that we had provided was 50 cents per $1,000. The option 3, $26.3 million, an estimated rate per 1,000 AV was 80 cents per thousand. And the prior estimate that we provided was 74 cents per $1,000 assessed valuation. The difference between option 3 and option 2 is more paving work around the district to either repair or restore paved surfaces, parking lots primarily at our schools across the district. So other than the rates per thousand, there's not been any other change since September. If you'll recall, I presented to you the different options and where you could find more information about them in the facilities, master facilities plan, or you could also refer to a document that I provided showing the activities per option and per school. And it was attached to this board plate as well, multiple page document showing all the different projects that would be funded by each option. I'm going to pause here because I'm going to move into the cap or the bond proposal next. Yes, Mary.
All right, can you explain how you came up with the dollar amount for each of the proposed projects and how that process works?
So the dollar amount was identified through the levy planning process that the Facilities Advisory Committee conducted with McGranahan Architect, and we assigned a dollar amount to through a cost estimator that was subcontracted through McGranahan to give us an idea of what the cost of each project would be, and then applied a 12% escalation increase based on the midpoint of the levy cycle, which would have been starting in 2025, ending in 2028. So it would be 2026 would be the end of 2026 would be the midpoint of the levy process to provide some additional resource for changes in cost due to escalation, inflation costs. And then working with McGranahan, we identified the most essential needs, the building, the roof at Arlington High School, the roof at Howard Middle School, painting at Howard Middle School, the systems that had failed and were due for replacement. And those are detailed in the master facilities plan as well. So the projects that were most essential description. Protecting life safety, preserving structural integrity, and replacing of some critical building systems like internet infrastructure. That's what's covered in option 1. Then the option 2 expands to include all those projects in option 2, plus the replacement of wall and floor covering systems. Then again, option 3 it builds on option 2 to include parking paved areas around schools. So that's the process that we use to arrive at each one of these options. The intent was to give the board some flexibility in terms of determining what projects we were going to be pursuing if we're successful. That was your question?
Yes, I have a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If we ask the voters to fund these capital projects, are we committed to these projects and these projects only, or is there some flexibility in, if we have leftover money, could we tackle some of the other things on our list, and how is that worded so that we can make sure we're being transparent with our community as much as possible?
I'm going to go back to the ballot title, or excuse me, the language of the first or the levy resolution. So there is within the language of the resolution, there is a listing of specific projects. And there's also a catch-all that other projects is determined necessary and advisable by the board. So there's room for, once these projects have been funded or completed, those projects are generally listed in the ballot resolution, or they're the ones that are promoted by the district that's being funded by the levy. And once those projects are complete, then there's room, flexibility to move on. There's also room within the stream of projects, of conducted projects, that the board can change the intended use of the funds. But that has to be board action that would specify something like that. Questions?
Brian, you had mentioned in the study session, you had asked us to kind of indicate, where we just kind of gave indicated through the maintain meter, on each one of those areas. So at the next board meeting, I guess, I'm kind of wondering, is the board wanting us to bring one back, or, based on the feedback we're hearing, or do you want to bring all 3 back, or what are thoughts on that?
Question. I think I had assumed that we would see all 3 and kind of discuss, but how has it been done in the past?
So we have not, this is our only second time that
Okay.
closing a capital levy.
Okay, okay,
In the past, we've not done capital levy.
okay.
The one that was passed in 2020 was the first.
Mhm.
So the idea was to give the board flexibility in selecting a package from the range of options, so that there was some consideration of the other propositions that would be on the ballot, including bond and the EP&L. At the time, we did not have a recommended amount for the EP&L. I think there's going to be some recommendation tonight. And the idea of the options was to give you flexibility in selecting what would be the ultimate package presented to the voters.
Mhm. What if one of the board members said, I don't like the idea of this A option at this one school? Could we maybe substitute option B at this other school and mix and match and put different puzzle pieces together? Would that be something that would make you go crazy, or?
Oh, then that would result in a delay of the adoption of resolutions. That hopefully would have happened before tonight, so that I could have presented those changes to you tonight. I haven't heard anything, so move forward what we have as far as the options. We can certainly do that. it would just change the
I
title.
was just asking the question. I have zero option in my head about adding anything. Do our student advisors have any thoughts about the three different options? You will be taxpayers very shortly.
I have a quick question.
Sharing.
I have a quick question. I trust that, there's obviously a lot of time and effort and, orchestrating this into the spreadsheet. It's definitely a diligent effort. And I'm wondering, do we need anyone of a professional nature in bond passage or levy passage to give us some thoughts on what they think will pass with our voters?
Fortune teller.
Ah, yes, I don't know anyone that's in that capacity right now, but I'm just wondering, part of me is inclined to go to the middle, but there are folks here that might say, you know what, we're just going to go for base level. Let's get option one because it's like Brian, I think you said it was whatever, 45 cents, or it was very close to, it's not a cost that is much greater than what we paid for the current levy we have. So some people might be inclined with that. I, as a board person, am most interested in passing something than nothing. So I want to be cognizant of, yes, I love that you did all three options, but I might not be inclined to go for option three just because it's the highest end of this choice. But I just wondered if there were people that you have consulted with, maybe Brian, that give us an idea of what's passable with our constituents.
That's a really hard question to answer. What we're hearing is it's a difficult environment in the bond. We're not hearing anything about a specific rate that's a golden goose, or what's the just right bowl of porridge.
Yeah, Goldilocks. Yeah, the Goldilocks option. Yep.
That's a Goldilocks. Thank you.
Good porridge, I like the porridge.
My great scary tales are escaping me. There is nothing like that. What is the determinative factor is the appetite for our community to provide the support. And what we know is that the history that we proposed the bond proposal. This will be the fifth time. But we also hear consistently from the community that they want us to pursue the project, rebuild the post. So there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
Sure, to be honest.
I agree.
But we also have, as the administrative staff in the district have a responsibility to define what we think is the right thing for our community, for our students, and to make a request for that.
Right. No.
And
Sounds
you'll be
fair.
able to- Yeah, the board will be able to look at when they're going to combine what the rates would be, even with the three different proposals. So you can kind of see what the total cost or the estimate.
So Sherry, you weren't here at our last meeting when we had our study session, and Brian shared all this information. Almost exactly the same information with the same three options, and we did a Mentimeter little poll. And
Yep.
Brian, can you share any of the results of that?
So out of the group that was present, the option number 3 was the selected, was the highest number of votes on the survey.
Fascinating. Good. Amen. That's great.
Option 2 was the second, option 1 was the lowest.
Very cool.
My personal preference is to bring option 3 back and ask for that 26 million. I think it's pretty comparable from what we had the last go around. And I think people are either going to vote yes for schools or no for schools, and they're not going to be as nitpicky about, well, this project or this project or this project. But growing up in my house, my dad always voted no for anything that costs money, and my mom always voted yes for anything that costs money. So they were never going to make any different choices. depending on how it was presented or how much it was. There was just yes and no. And I think a lot of our community is either yes or no for schools.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if making a tweak to a different project is gonna make that big of a difference. That's
That
just
makes
my
total
personal
sense.
opinion.
Yeah, and it was, but option 3 is a little bit more, it was 25 something, right, Brian, the last capital, the first capital levy the community.
Right.
approved.
And our rate per thousand at that time was estimated at $1.15, and we're at 80 cents right now. Because of changes in assessed valuation. So it drove the rate down, but one thing that when you see it on the ballot, I don't believe you see a rate per thousand. You see a dollar amount to be collected in each year.
Because it fluctuates depending on
Yeah,
that.
rate per thousand changes. We just use that as a metric to express what we think the cost would be per thousand of assessed valuation. Everybody's property values are different.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, so I'll move on or before I move on, I want to make sure there's no more questions about the capital levy. Okay. So the next item is the bonds to construct the new Post Middle School, and this is the resolution language from the February 11, 2020. The reason I put this here from that election, the reason I put this here is because it shows the cost, what we thought the cost of the site redevelopment, the building construction for Post was at the time was $71.5 million. And we've seen significant changes in construction costs over the past 4 years. And I'll show you what we think it's going to be now. I've shown this image before that just shows the concept of the types of rooms that would be necessary inside of the building. You want to add that on the top, the areas with the classrooms, that would be actually 2 stories tall, and not 1 story tall. The remainder of the structure would be 1 story in height. It shows the potential for future expansion. We would have utilities stubbed out in those areas so that if we needed to add another instructional wing at a later point in time in lieu of building a 3rd middle school, and we could use that facility or build that facility in that way. So there would be forward thinking in nature so that we could provide additional space for more students if we need them. We also provide the kinds of spaces that are needed: science classrooms, special education classrooms, STEAM, which is science, technology, education, or engineering and arts. Math. So really multidisciplinary types of rooms. These rooms would be a little more flexible and have more resources available, and then additional electricity, counter spaces for science experiments, rooms that are suitable for that kind of teaching. And then we would provide a gymnasium, administrative area, commons, a kitchen for food service, band room, library, lockers, wrestling, and exercise mat room, which we have now at Post, weight room in the gym. There would be service entrances into the site for the kitchen and a loading door for the tech in shop, and an entrance from the bus area, the bus zone to the instructional sites, plus a separate entrance and for lockers and community members coming in through the front. There'll be multiple ways to access the site that it can be secured. And just pointing out that there would be interior hallways as well. This image shows the placement of the school building on the site, on the redeveloped site, and the outline of the existing building. It also shows a dotted line on the top of the image, which shows 150-foot setback from the cliffside, basically there on the site that leads down to a river bottom area. That area is stable. The ground is very firm. What that translates to, though, is that if there was an earthquake, then the force, the shaking would be transmitted into the building instead of causing a condition called liquefaction, which would cause the ground to more of the energy would be going into the building. So a steel frame building would be helpful in terms of survivability. Post does not have a steel frame inside of it. Along with the construction of the new school building would come a new bus lane to help ease traffic at the site. With the growth at SVLC and SVLC program and the creeping the largest elementary school site in our buildings in terms of enrollment. There is lots of traffic at the school right now. We're working on ways to ease that in lieu of site redevelopment, but creating additional spaces for cars for traffic would be helpful as well. And separating buses from car traffic would also be helpful. So we also would provide a new track. There's going to be some pictures of the current track conditions coming out pretty soon to let our community know what the current track is like. It's an asphalt track and it's got pits in it. It's not very safe for any kind of competition at all. There's also a new field on site. An artificial surface would be the best for long-term maintenance issues. It wouldn't cost us additional grounds time to maintain, but a grass surface would be sufficient as well for the middle school purposes. There's an area there marked future parking expansion. You can see in the parking spaces. I would encourage, if at all possible, that if we are able to build this, that we don't reserve that area for future. We go ahead and build it out right now because it's going to be a lot less expensive to do that at the moment than it is to wait 20 years to do it at that point in time. One feature I also want to point out here is you can see on the bottom, there's a set of two lines across that run diagonally from left to right. That is the BPA utility easement. So we really can't do a whole lot of anything there. And that's a lot of that drives the design of the site in terms of not placing any kind of structure anywhere near it. We cannot build underneath those power lines. As far as you can't place a building underneath those power lines.
But you can put parking.
Yeah, you can use it for parking or for the road. You can see the roads pass underneath them just like they do now. We've got parking spots for SVLC assigned underneath as well. Just kind of acts as a hard barrier for this. This is an image that I did not present last time. I was able to secure it from the architects. Shows an aerial view of the new post school in the context of its relationship to Eagle Creek Elementary. And you can see the shared bus loop behind it and the parent drop-off area adjacent to the road that would work for both buildings. So the cost of this site redevelopment and new building is estimated at $94 million now. We're asking for $89 million because we're eligible for $5 million in state matching funds, but it would come from the replacement of post middle school. So the rate on that is 75 cents per thousand. Last time we presented a rate of 69 cents per thousand. So you see a pattern here, changes in cost based on updated assessed valuations that we received. Those are all estimated.
Brian, remind me again, what year, if this passes, when this passes in February of 24, how long does it take before this school is ready for occupancy?
3 years from passage. So the first year and a half is design and permitting. The second year and a half is construction. So conceivably, we could be in the building in September of 2027.
And I want to mention here that it's important to understand that, it takes time to build, but we also have factors at post that could contribute to having to do some interim solution finding if systems were to fail, because we do have some systems that that could fail, you know, and so we're looking into just maybe, it was suggested at the recent budget advisory task force meeting that maybe there'd be a task force that come together just to start considering that to take a look at what solutions could be, temporary solutions, until we had building in place, because there's that need. There could be, I don't know, Brian, there could be where we couldn't find parts because some of the systems are very old in there, or it could be that the system just totally is dysfunctional. And some of those include what, Brian? What are some of those?
The biggest concerns are the HVAC systems and the electrical systems in the building. We have no capacity in the building for electrical systems. If we were to update any electricity in the building, we would most likely be compelled to build a new room onto the school in order to house the new electrical systems. And these would also require evacuation or abandonment of parts of the building for a period of time while the work was being performed on it. The other system at risk is the HVAC systems in the building. They're all modular type heat pumps systems that serve multiple rooms per heat pump, but it is difficult for us to find parts, and we cannot program them at all without being on site and having a relic of the computer with almost impossible to find connectors between the computer and the HVAC system. We had a situation that caused us to lose the connectors for a period of 4 months. We could not change the programming inside of the HVAC system of the building, but miraculously we found them again. And it was not through any fault of our staff, but they did disappear, and we were able to get them back, and we were able to change the program again. We cannot. It's a risk that we constantly face, is being able to program the system and update and repair it as necessary. The system repairs and replacements chapter devoted to post provides the most level, the highest level of detail regarding the systems inside of that building that are, past beyond their useful life and impossible to find repair parts.
I have another question about just the building in general.
Right, Sherry.
Okay, my question is, this is a bricks and mortar building, and I wonder if we have looked at another building option type, like something that would be modular. Specifically, so my husband works for the city. They had a building that was, I believe it was done at a company in Marysville, and then it was produced in Marysville and then trucked over and put on site. So a modular type building. Have we considered other options than a bricks and mortar type of construction?
Not for a building besides a post. And the biggest reason is the types of spaces that are part of a middle school that are high volume, the gymnasium, the commons, library, multi-story type spaces. It would require a larger footprint to provide the same number of spaces as a bricks and mortar site built structure would allow us to have. And there's some question as to longevity. And I know exactly who the producer of that building was that you're referring to, Sherry. We're customers of theirs as well as Pacific Mobile Systems. They're installing portable buildings at Eagle Creek right now. Although they're not going to be portable because they're going to be in the ground. Basically, we jokingly term them as permeables because they're not likely to ever leave the site. So we didn't spend any time on that, looking at that.
Okay. I don't know if we have, voters that, would have that in their mind, but I think that's certainly a good argument to say for the scope of this project, the footprint we're looking at, and then multi, levels. It's been a consideration, but it doesn't work for our needs. So that's perfect. That's just what I want to understand. Thank you for validating that.
Any other questions? Hand it off to my colleague. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. It's my turn to take part in this group presentation. I'm Gina Zutenhorst, Executive Director of Financial Services. And I'll be talking to you about the 2024 EP&O Educational Programs and Operations Levy Planning Update. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about the capital levy and potential bond, but we actually have two levies that are expiring. The capital levy is one of them, but also the Arlington Public Schools EP&O, it expires at the end of 2024. So both levies. And talking about the EP&O, it's intended to fund Arlington School District public program activities, services, and supports that are not funded by the state's basic education allocation formula. It is currently 11% of our total revenues. As we know, and we've been talking about school district finances, there is a gap between what the state funds and what the district needs to operate and sustain the programs and services that we currently provide to our students. And that gap is growing. Our enrichment costs, the things that we provide that the state is not providing enough funds to do it all with, those costs are also growing. So you're going to see in my presentation to you that the request that we would be putting before the board for your potential approval in the next board meeting, but that request for levy funds is also growing. So this is a picture of what would be proposed to you in the next board meeting, 2025 through 2028 EP&O levy, based on an estimated levy tax rate of $1.70 per thousand of assessed valuation. And that is using a very conservative assessed valuation growth measure, only 2.5% growth. Growth of AV has been magnanimous over the past years, but forecasts from the experts are thinking that that's going to be slowing down. So we're using a very conservative assessed valuation when we're determining these rates. The dollar amounts on there are what would be proposed for levy for 2025, 13.4 million, 2026, 13.7 million, 2027, 14.1 million, 2028, 14.5 million. And I want to point out that the previous levy that was passed for 2020, that levy was passed with an estimated rate of $1.70 per thousand of assessed valuation. I think it's also important to also just say out front that that effective rate actually ended up being much less than $1.70 per thousand of assessed valuation, not because we levied less of a dollar amount, lump sum, but because assessed valuation went up so high that when you do the math calculation, the rate goes down. This drives that rate down. And I also want to point out a very important thing, that we are not asking for the maximum that we would be authorized to ask for by law. The max levy limitations would be 17.4 million, and then 18 million, 18.7 million, and 19.4 million across the 4 years. So what we would be proposing would be much less than the maximum that we would be authorized to do. This is just a quick picture of the levy resolution, and it is a draft. But if we were to plug in those dollar amounts, that's what that would look like. And this is the same resolution as what was previously done in 2020. It has not changed it, but what would change is the dollar amounts and the dates and the rates. And this is a little bit more of what the resolution talks about. It states that it appears that certain money in the district's general fund will be insufficient to permit the district to meet the educational needs of its students and pay expenses of educational programs and operations not funded by the state of Washington. That's keywords there. And then the C section, this resolution provides for approximately the same educational programs and operations purposes as the district's expiring four-year general fund educational programs and operations levy. And it's to meet the educational needs of its students and pay expenses of educational programs and operations, again, not funded by the state. And then it goes into a little bit more detail in words about what that is. An important component as we're considering these big decisions is tax rates combined, because we've been talking about EP&O, we've been talking about bond, we've been talking about capital levy. So we had a presentation from Corey Plater at the August 28, 2023 board meeting. And so some of these slides are what was part of that presentation that's attached back there. And this is the election passage rate history. And you can see for the various measures that have gone before the voters over the years, what percentage of votes they received as a yes vote. So the far right column is the last EP&O levy, and that passed with a 56.1% voter approval. And our bond also had more than a 50% majority. Unfortunately, that because it required a 60% majority, we were not able to move forward with that one. But our capital levy also was on the ballot in 2020.
If we could just take a tiny little rest. Would anyone be opposed to taking a brief recess? And we will come right back in about 5 minutes.
All right.
Thank you. It's a stretch break. Welcome back. Thank you for allowing us to brief recess.
I'm glad we could do that.
And where were you?
Okay, I was just talking about passage rates and you can see them there. So 56% passage rate for the EP&O last time we went out for that. And then here are the associated tax rates for historical purposes, so you can get perspective compared to what we may be asking for next. The 2020 was under the old levy. 2021 is the most recent levy. So 2021, 22, and 23. And then 24 isn't on there yet, but that's the 4th year of the expiring levy. So as I said in the previous slides, the voters approved the ballot. It had an estimated tax rate included within at the board resolution for $1.70 per thousand of assessed valuation. The actual rate for the levy EP&O ended up being $1.63 in that first year, and then $1.49, and then $1.21, and you can see the capital levy as well stacked on top of that. So the total tax rate combined is listed on there, and I'll just point to it. You can see that. That's what it has been. And then the dollar amounts for the EP&O levy, you can see the history of that. So the most recent years are to the far right, and we had the dollar amounts that were approved that were levied in those last 3, and the 4th year is on there as well. 2024, which we have yet to put on the rolls, but we will do so soon. And then this is what that same chart looks like, but now it's stacked up with the potential proposed amounts for the next levy that we would put out there. And it has the dollar amounts on there, and that is the $1.70 for the tax rate with the estimated assessed valuation. And again, we're using a conservative assessed valuation. If assessed valuation continues to grow at a higher rate, that will actually be a effective tax rate would be less. So you see that relationship there. And then here is a picture projecting the tax rates stacked. So with the green part being EP&O, the gray part being capital levy, and then the brown part, make sure I got that right, being at the top being the bond. And this is, I'll show you 3 options there because we had 3 capital levy options. So this is the lesser, the 16.5, option 1. And the total combined tax rate is 2.95 estimated. And then once the capital levy expires, assuming we continued with the EP&O and the bond still continuing for the next 20 years. Here's option 2 at the $17.9 million amount for the capital levy. And then the other factors remained the same. So that's a combined estimated tax rate of $2.99 in those 4 years of levy. Everybody see that? Your eyes going to the right spot? Okay. And then this is option 3, the higher dollar amount of the capital levy, and the other factors remaining the same. It creates a 3.25 estimated tax rate. $3.25 per thousand of assessed valuation. And a little bit more perspective, here are the Snohomish school tax rates as they stand for 2023. So many of these districts are also going to be in the same situation as us, coming with a new proposal for an EP&O and potentially capital levies and bonds. I'm not sure about that for them, but you can see that where we were at, we had a lower tax rate than many of our counterparts across Snohomish County. And I don't anticipate that where we would fall in the lineup changing too terribly much. Now, it's difficult to speculate because I don't have all that information, but I have been beginning conversations with some of my other local districts to find out where do they think they are landing with some of their progress on that. So keeping tabs.
The only ones that we are higher than, because we're pretty low on the
Yes.
totem pole. Index, Darrington,
Index.
and Marysville, because they didn't pass their
Correct.
levy that one time, twice.
This is, yes. And
But we're not,
still lower than, yeah.
we're lower than Sultan.
And they also have a capital levy and a M&O. Yep. So you kind of get a sense of it. These are all the ones that have bonds. So sometimes that also makes the tax rate look higher than ours.
There'll be some that are gonna go out, there'll be quite a few that go out.
There are many who are on the same cycle as us, or if not this year, next year.
And theirs will probably go up as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Revisiting our timeline, we're on October 9, where we're looking at drafts of ballot resolutions. October 23, we'll bring resolutions for your consideration for proposed adoption, taking action on those. December 15 is a really important date. That's the deadline to file those resolutions with Snohomish County. January 26th, approximate date that the ballots are mailed. There might be a little plus or minus some days there. Yeah, I think we were talking about that a little earlier, January 21st, possibly. February 13th is election date, and then we should have a pretty good idea how things are coming out within a few days, but it's not actually certified official results until February 23rd. Now, important factor to keep in our minds is that if that first ballot is unsuccessful, we would have to have taken action in a special board meeting prior to that to get on the next deadline, because the next time deadline with the county is February 23rd. The same date that they certify is also the deadline to put another resolution in order to get on April's ballot, which would be our next opportunity to get out there.
And we could adjust our, what's on the ballot for April. Is that right?
Okay, and we could just maybe take one thing forward instead of.
Okay.
Do we happen to know when our board meetings are in February?
No, there's a week in
Have to be
between.
special.
Yeah, there would have to
be special.
Yeah, we have 1 week to
We
have
will
a
look at-
special meeting,
we
and the
will look
Monday
at
is not available because it's a holiday, so it'd have to be on that Tuesday through Friday.
And if they both levies pass, but the bond doesn't, could we choose to run the bond again on that day?
Yes, I think so. Whether we would decide that
wanted-
that's the right
if
thing
we
we want to do, we would certainly be talking.
That would be an option.
I've seen it happen. There would have to be some pretty compelling reason to do so.
Like if we were at 59.9%,
Yeah,
that would be a compelling reason.
yes.
And that's all I have for you. And of course, any questions that you have, or if you need me to flip back to any of the other slides, you certainly have the presentation that you can access at any time. Board docs.
So I just want to make sure I have it clear and I understand that at our next meeting, there will be action on this topic where the board will decide which option and then pass a resolution, vote for each one of those three
Three
ballot
separate
measures.
action items. It would be a levy action item, a capital levy action item, and a bond action item.
With public hearings for all three.
I don't think that there's public hearing.
Oh, that. We have to do that.
Not required.
No.
Yeah, we do multiple sessions of it for the board to ponder, so. Yeah, so today and the next week, like a first and second hearing for reading.
So my question to the board is, what more information do you need to help with that decision? You know, what else can you do to provide the information especially in considering the capital levy options, because there's
Sherry, do you have any?
No, I'm good. I think, Mary, you presented a good analysis, thinking that it's yes or no. You know, I kind of agreed with your assessment of that. It's the option 3. I mean, if we're go big or go home kind of thing. And it doesn't seem as consequential of a monetary commitment. But yeah, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. I think we would do what the schools need us to do. So I think at this point, my mind is more in the camp of option 3. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think all the presentations have been very clear and detailed, given enough detail that I feel like we'll be able to make a decision. I mean, just from my perspective, I know that I feel clear on what I would like to decide. So yeah, I don't think there is anything more.
Thank you. There's one thing that I was curious of, and I don't know if it's something that you might just have a slide of somewhere from previous presentations, but you know, we have that prototypical school model and thinking about our EP&O levy, about how we don't have enough money from the state for basic education, and we provide a lot more than what the prototypical model. It would be nice to see the prototypical model and what it provides and what the money goes toward from the state, and then where all the holes are and where we fit. You happen to have a slide similar
I
to
don't
that.
have a slide that's just like that. I guess we've been looking at it from higher level terms, being that the state provides, you know,
And one nurse for the whole district.
90% of our funding. Or, you know, the state and federal dollars are 90%, where our levy is 10 to 11% of our total funding. So you can look at it kind of like that. You could look at it as almost every dollar that we spend, you know, how much is funded by the state, how much is funded by our local levy is by doing that split in and of itself. It gets pretty complicated. Just try to stratify it. It can be done. But you know, there are certain areas we know are grossly underfunded. For example, our nursing staff is often pointed out, counselors, mental health specialists, and things like that, grossly underfunded as far as how the state approaches that. And the formula is just a formula. It doesn't actually equate to actual needs. And it's an allocation method only. It doesn't really dictate within that how you are to use those funds, with some exception. There are some slivers within it where they have dictated, you must of this, do this with this allocation, this allocation. So I don't have a slide.
Okay, I was just kind of curious to see where the holes are that our EP&O always fills, that we take for granted.
Yeah.
What would happen if we
Extracurricular
didn't have it?
Is extracurricular is
Sports.
one very clear example that they provide zero funding for extracurricular.
So music, arts, sports, clubs, all that.
Yeah, and when we get into it more, we start talking more about the details of what is funded, what is of interest that is funded by levy dollars. Curriculum, a lot of curriculum, technology. A lot of technology. Yeah.
Do our student advisors have any pressing questions about levies and bonds? Nope.
Voting.
Are you guys old enough to vote yet?
I got like 8 months, I think, next year. It'd be interesting to see what percentage of Arlington High School and Weston High School students also are registered to vote. The age of voting.
I'm sure every year we ask kids to register to vote.
Mhm.
We send out notices for every election. Don't forget to vote.
I actually saw a thing about registering to vote. You can register, I think my mom was saying you can register when you're 17, so then you don't have to do like the whole process. Once you're 18, you actually do the voting and stuff. Yeah, adulting.
No, I agree. I concur. All right. Thank you, Gina, and thank you, Brian, for the informative, consistent, clear messaging. We appreciate your help. Next up, we have our legislative priorities, and Director Kelly, would you like to speak about our legislative priorities?
I sure would. I had submitted the top 10, or it wasn't prioritized, but the 10 legislative priorities to Debbie and Dr. Sweeting. Should I read those off to you? What I submitted? Sure. Okay, so from this list, they compiled this beautiful, I call like a white paper, but a beautiful synopsis of what our district, what our priorities are. So of the many things we did for our General Assembly, the 10 I came up with, capital construction grant programs, amply funded staffing levels, equity-based K-12 education system, equitable funding for regionalization and staff mix, comprehensive multi-heritage instructional materials, diversity and inclusive education, transportation funding, universal free meals, support special education programs, and career and CTE programs. So I had that list from essentially General Assembly, and then Dr. Sweeting gave me a couple different lists of priorities from like Wausau. I'm not sure if one was from the school board at a state level, the state school board. There were 2 or 3, and that was what was compiled to then come up with this 2024 legislative priority sheet. I love it. It's got a lot of wow factor, and it definitely personalizes. And I feel like it makes Arlington kind of have a seat at the table when it comes to having a serious conversation about what schools want from the legislature. Now, to piggyback on that, I will also tell you I had my ledge meeting tonight, and it was interesting because the gentleman, Mike Hoover, has been doing this legislative, been in the legislative capacity for 25 years. He's recently joined WASDA. And understand that we're going into a short, at the biennium, we're going into a short session. It will only be 60 days. There are a list, and I could read them up, but I don't want to have the more minutes to the meeting, but there was a list of probably 8 other things that are very top priority, that will be probably priority for the legislature. Education was not on that list. So just to think that, I know we have our bond, and I did ask the question to Marissa. I said, we did not list a priority, a priority of reducing the bond from 60% supermajority to simple majority like levies. Many districts share that as a common theme. It's something we continually go to the legislature for. Mike did not seem to think that that would be something that we would put on the table this year. I think the regionalization factors, there were a couple other names that we called it that we're talking about. Marissa did mention the threshold that is being considered is more of a 55%. So I think we should still have that conversation. But realistically, when you have the shorter session, less gets done. There's less time, and so they have to prioritize. So that's the reality. I think I support, we obviously go ahead with this bond for post-middle school, but just keep that in the back of your mind. And also, like I said, talk to the legislators and say, hey, we have 60%. Can we bring it down? Can we find some number that's even more negotiable? So anyway, that is that. But yeah, so I'm interested to see where we go with this. We're not alone. And again, Dr. Sweeting, thank you so much. And Debbie and whatever other staff members put that together. I love it. And I definitely advocate for that to be shared with our legislators and in our region. And I think that them coming to visit us and seeing where the CTE money is going, how we spend special ed money, and just continue to garner their support that's pro schools and pro students would be great. And also looking forward, in about a month, we have our WASDA conference down in Bellevue. So that should be exciting. Other than that, that's my updates.
Thank you, Sherry. This legislative priority list is something that's on our agenda as an action item. Does anybody have any thoughts or opinions about any of these things on this list? WASDA did send us a list of 224 different legislative priorities to think on. But this is our list that we would advocate for as like our highest priorities. Director Knapp, any thoughts?
I love it. And I also think it looks really nice. So thank you, Sherry, because I know we've also had conversations as you know, we've had more conversations before this. You brought it to the board before asking us what our priorities are as well. So considering all of us, and I think this is really representative of, you know, Arlington's needs and also districts around the state. So I think it's great.
Thank you. Do our student advisors have any thoughts about our legislative program? They probably affect you more than the rest of us.
Sherry, as you were talking, you know, there is one bullet we could add to the second one that I must have, when I was trying to condense what you had put in on those 10 about transportation. So we could add a bullet that says providing a fix to the transportation formula, because that's one thing I think I didn't get in that list. I was trying to include, you know, the interest that for the career readiness programs and for curriculum, instructional materials, and for the staffing ratio, but I didn't address in that list transportation. So that might be a consideration the board to just you know, this, but add a bullet about transportation, fixing the transportation formula.
Yeah, I think adding that would be more encompassing, and also realize we are working with all the other districts in this state, and then WASDA takes all that and, you know, runs it, and then they come up with those priorities. But certainly I think transportation, if I remember correctly, was on that WASDA list last year. So absolutely add that bullet, and we can know that we will amend that. But if everyone's good with it, we can kind of take a vote on it with that amendment.
Yeah. All right. I'm hearing a general consensus. Do we have an opinion from our student advisors?
Yeah, really quickly, let's straight through this all. I appreciate, it says, Arlington Public Schools thanks the legislature for improving the special education funding enhancements over the last several years. I appreciate the wording. I think we should always thank first before we ask. I'm curious though, it says feed the students. Is it realistic for us to ask for universal like funding to give students free food, basically? I don't know if.
So in some districts, there are options for them to provide meals for the entire school district, and the state funds it, but there's certain parameters, and they did fully fund all students eating during the pandemic for free. So it is something that they have done, they could do if their priorities were aligned.
And there are several others. I was looking at different districts, and there are others that are asking for, they said it a little bit differently, but universal, you know, food, universal feeding of students. But
and then more importantly, up at the top it says under the advanced equity based and inclusive education, it says provide funding for diversity, equity, inclusion, social and professional development, for staff. Does that include for students, or is that specifically for staff? It's becoming more apparent to me that there's a lot of lot more diversity in our school district than I previously thought, but with that, a lot of discrimination for a lot more students recently. That they've felt like this isn't a safe place for them, so I'm wondering how that relates
Maybe
to.
with the staff and students.
The first sentence does say to remove barriers to learning for each student.
Right.
And then the second sentence says all staff, like training for all staff.
Right.
We could add another,
Yeah, it is intended to be focused on helping the staff to be aware of what their, biases are. But you're right. I mean, students have biases too, and struggles with that.
I think in our previous, I can't remember which meeting it was, the equity meeting. When we were, what we've done in the past and how we're educating our staff on how to solve these issues, like directly when it happens. I think that's huge, and that should be our first step into, removing those barriers and making kids feel more at home and more safe.
No, we talked about that in the Student Advisory Council.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Yeah. The other thing on here is we should add the student advisor names. To that. I noticed that.
Yeah.
So we'll do that
here.
Oh,
just, but maybe on that, the first paragraph. If we just said, we could just leave it at the end of the professional development training. Either we say for all staff and students, but that's a big calling.
Could we just say for all?
And just leave it open?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that includes
Yeah.
everybody, whether it be staff, teachers, students, parents, community members that are connected to the school board. I think all is very inclusive without singling anybody out.
I don't think that's a huge change, right? It's just like directly changing the word.
But, yeah, no, I have no problem with that.
Okay,
I need to hear that item, say which bullet and where we're adding.
okay.
What are we doing?
So do we have a motion to approve the legislative priorities?
If you could just tell me and I'll put it in the.
Oh, you want to just do it?
I just want to add it to my motion and but
Okay.
I don't know what paragraph and what bullet we're
Or
adding.
can you just say with revisions? So I can go over the revisions.
I can see if I can remember it all.
No, I don't, not to do the motion, I just need to put it in the computer, what you're asking to change. The first paragraph, are we all good with taking out? Okay, all right, the first paragraph after all, just crossing off staff and putting a period after all. Oh, maybe you got staff.
The second paragraph, adding a bullet, it says
I have
about
that.
transportation.
Providing the fix.
That's the first paragraph omits the word staff.
And then adding student advisors,
That isn't.
providing a fix to the current transportation formula.
I have that.
Okay. And then that's it. Just the three little minor adjustments. Okay, now do we have a motion to approve the legislative priorities for 2024 with changes?
I'll make a motion. We approve the 2024 legislative priorities with revision.
I second.
It's been to approve the Arlington Public Schools legislative priorities for 2024 with the revision. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye. Yay. So we did that. Our new business is all concluded, and that moves us into our informational item. And our first item will be our superintendent's report.
So quickly, tonight, Eagle Creek fifth graders are at camp. Last week, Kent Prairie, fifth graders went to camp, and Mr. Sable was able to go visit last week, and so it's awesome, great experience. And the other two elementaries will also attend camp this week. This last weekend, Friday night was the homecoming game, which we prevailed. It was a wonderful night of celebration with our homecoming court that was the length of the field almost. And then we won. And then there was a dance on Saturday night. So it was all a good weekend. On November 2nd, there will be a joint meeting with the Advisory Council for Education and the Budget Advisory Task Force with a tour of Post. So people can see, this is an event which you should all. And I wanted to read, I'll read two real quickly. Thank you notes for the Mayo scholarships. Thank you so much for your generous donation. I will use it to advance my educational career at Central Washington University. My goal is to become a pilot in the Air Force and to help my community. I am so grateful for your support. This award means so much to me, and I'm proud to represent my gratitude towards you. Thank you for putting your confidence in me. And I decided I'm not gonna say names, just for privacy purposes from now on. Next one, thank you so much for this opportunity to fund my college. I grew up poor, and this money is very helpful for my future. I am planning on attending Wichita State University in the fall to major in physics. I am very grateful that as a donor, you have put your confidence in me to pursue my dreams at college. I am planning to go to school to be an physicist. There's a lot of S's in that. Physicist, which takes a lot of time and money. So I'm very grateful to have this portion covered. That's what I'll share tonight.
Thank you. Sherry, do you have anything else to add for your legislative update?
I don't.
All right, thank you. Do we have any comments from our board members? Start with our student advisor.
Comments.
Sure.
So let's start off with homecoming weekend. It was a fantastic turnout. The parade went very well. I got to be on the senior float, and being honest, I think our float looked the best. Just gonna put that out there. The dance was also a blast. I know I had a fantastic time. The music was great. The vibes were on point. And the football game, of course, we crushed those guys. I'd also like, I know they're not here anymore, but just a huge shout out to the internship presentation. Like Juliana, I think her name was, just hearing stories like that. It's so moving and just amazing to see. Like, I love the internship program as a whole. That's why I was asking, like, oh, how long has it been going on for? What caused what started it up? And I just think it's a great opportunity for those to go out and explore careers that they could possibly continue and pursue after high school. I think it's a wonderful program. Another thing I wanted to add, recently I've been really feeling that senior kind of feel. I got the college fair. I went and did a little scope of the colleges and stuff, and it's really getting to me now. Like, applications are coming up and college tours, so it's really getting into the feel of things. And the last thing I want to say is my little brother is going to that elementary camp this week, and he is beyond excited to go. He's like already been making a list of everything he's going to be packing since like last week. He's like, okay, I gotta get this, I gotta get this, and I'm over here trying to tell him, how are you gonna carry all of this? Like, not glamping, it's just camping. But besides that, that's all I have to share for tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. That was a lovely update. Nathan.
Yeah, similar, a lot of excitement. All the Grand Homecoming was a wonderful event. I think getting people into the homecoming could have been smoother, but I guess it's a conversation I can have with primarily home. But let's see here. I think, yeah, the internship was absolutely wonderful. I think the more ways we can include students, like not just like presenting to the board, but kind of showing us what they're doing, is kind of the whole point of why we're sitting here. That's the reason why I applied for this position, is to give more student voice and activity. I think that's, again, that's a whole point. So in any way we can start, I guess, not asking students to come in more often, but if there's any way we can do that, that'd be wonderful for our perspective, but also community perspective. Other than that, my personal items is my niece's birthday is tomorrow, so it was her birthday party was tonight, and other than And yeah, college is coming around the corner for me as well. So just very grateful and very blessed for this opportunity to be this.
Thank you, Nathan, and congratulations on being nominated. That's one of
Oh,
the
thank
coming for people.
That was a
Director Knapp, anything to share?
Well, I'm just really grateful for all the hard work that Lisa does, and also just learning about all the grants. I know that that is a lot of work to get those together and providing all of the supports for our students. So thank you for sharing about all of those. I really enjoyed learning about it. And then as far as the college fair goes, my 9th grader went and he said he went to every single table. He wanted all the freebies. So he got all the freebies, but he decided he wants to be a Husky. So Gary might have some advice there. And then we'll see. It's a goal. It's a goal. I also have a 5th grader going to camp, which is another, grant funded opportunity. So yeah, very grateful for that. And thank you for mentioning, Indigenous Peoples Day today. We took some time to look at some artwork, local artwork, and there was the Nordic Museum that opened in Seattle. So there's a lot of like Alaska Native artwork there. We just looked online. So just a really cool day to celebrate and learn something new that maybe we didn't know before.
Thank you for sharing. I just want to add that I enjoyed homecoming too. It was so fun. But I was just really there to cheer on the band, which looked amazing with their spats and their gloves and their banner and all the fancy new marching, which was quite impressive. So I had a great time at homecoming. I know the audience did too. It's just such a happy feel to be winning. So good. And
I'm laughing at the audience. I'm like, there could be fans of the football team, but it's,
it's not. I'm sure that the whole football team is watching the school board meeting and going, yay. But yay, it's so fun to win. Let's keep winning all the way through February. So, I just want to say thank you for all the good comments and the good conversation and the great presentations. Thank you for everybody working together to make it so great here in Arlington. If there is nothing else to add, I'm going to remind us of our next meetings. We have a study session on October 28th, and this is the one that's early. It's 4 o'clock in the Lincoln Room, and on the 23rd, did I see something else? I'm tired. At 4 o'clock in the Lincoln Room, and then the regular board meeting is also on October 23rd at 6 p.m. in the boardroom. And is there anything else to add? Okay, then we can take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we can adjourn this meeting. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. The meeting is now adjourned. Drive safe.